I've seen a narrative floating around about Texas A&M recruiting and Mike Elko's ability to recruit that we're going to put to bed today.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a narrative that I have seen floating around. Now, before we get into this, I want to add a few caveats. It's not like this has been written a ton all over the place. I just saw a few people tweeting this. And and so I thought to myself, I want to talk about this before this becomes a big narrative, before this becomes something that people kind of go, maybe this is something we should be concerned about. So what that narrative is people were commenting on a tweet about, it was a Texas A&M Twitter person saying, hey, I'm excited about Coach Elko, yada, yada. And somebody commented and said, well, look at his recruiting classes at Duke. Is he able to recruit at Texas A&M? That is what I want to talk about today. That is what I want to put to bed. So once again, this is not like floating around everywhere in the universe, but it's something I just wondered. I was like, I wonder if any Texas A&M fans looked up Mike Elko's recruiting at Duke and kind of went, oh, should this be concerning? So I kind of wanted to talk about this and put this to bed a little bit. So if this is a concern for you, this will make you feel better. If it wasn't, then it'll put it to bed for you anyway. So in 2023, currently, the recruiting class for Duke is at 68 in the nation. In 2022, the recruiting class was 61 in the nation. So those were Elko's two recruiting classes where he was really there, was really the coach. It's funny. I was just talking to a colleague, and it was just like we were discussing how it's so fun. It feels like Elko was at Duke for longer than he was. But it was just like that. Like snap your fingers, he's gone, he's back. So you go, those recruiting classes aren't great. Well, maybe Duke's this historic program recruiting well. No, it's not. So let's run through some of these other recruiting classes from 2021 all the way back to 2018. Okay. 2021, 59. 2020, 56. 2019, 52. 2018, 63. Okay, so this Duke football program has never recruited well. Never recruited well. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here is I think people are going to kind of be worried about his recruiting. And at the end of the day, I don't look at this as a concern. What I look at and I'm positive and excited about is that Texas A&M is getting a coach who took this Duke program from a horrible season in 2021 to a 9-4 season in 2022. And I tell you what, assistant coaches can help recruit. Recruiting doesn't always, I think a lot of people think, the head coach obviously helps in recruiting. I'm not denying that. But I think a lot of, if you go right now, if you go pull up 24/7 Sports and you look at Texas A&M's commits for 2024, the 2024 class, 2023 class, it's not going to say Jimbo Fisher. It's going to say Coach Craig or Coach or Robinson. It's not always going to say, it's not going to say Coach Fisher because the assistants are helping recruit, and that's what I'm getting at. So what I care more about, I think that Elko is a fine recruiter, and he'll be able to sell his vision, sell how good his defenses were during his time at Texas A&M, and sell all of that. It's going to be easy for him to recruit. And then the thing people are forgetting too, look at all the resources. Recruiting at Texas A&M is not the problem. That is not what I'm concerned about. What I am concerned about is developing what you recruit. we're gonna talk a little bit about developing what you recruit and a couple coaches who were not kept on staff. So we'll talk about that in segment 2. But that is what I'm concerned about, and that is so key. So you might look at the 2021 recruiting class to the 2022 recruiting class for Duke. 2021, they're 59. Elko gets there, they're 61. They drop a couple spots, but they won more football games, a lot more football games, a substantial amount more football games. They won with Coach Elko leading this football team. And that to me is what matters more than his time at Duke. I can guarantee you something. I think next year, Elko's first recruiting class, it'll be top 10. I mean, bookmark it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I feel very confident the Texas A&M recruiting class next year is going to be top 10 with Elko, making these decisions. I just think he's, it's funny. I had a lot of people comment when Coach Elko was hired and say, Andrew, I don't think you're excited enough about Coach Elko. I don't think I was. I don't think I was. And I've done a lot more research. I've just really dug into this hire. I'm bought in, ladies and gentlemen. I am bought in. I like Coach Elko. I loved his speech to open up his head coaching tenure at Texas A&M. I loved that he talks about relationships with players, relationships with Texas high school football coaches. I loved the whole. I walked in the room and hugged all these people. I think he's gonna be able to keep this roster together. I am bought in and excited, extremely excited about what Coach Elko is bringing to Texas A&M, because I think he is going to extremely achieve for the Aggies. So I just think for the people that are saying, look at Duke's recruiting classes, historically, Duke hasn't recruited at a high level. I believe that if Elko would have continued, would have stayed at Duke and continued the success, if they would have won their bowl game this season, another good year, he would have stuck around. I think they could have gotten these recruiting classes up to the low 50s, mid 40s. Like, he would have moved the recruiting classes up. But you got to remember, Duke's a basketball school. Duke is not here. I mean, you want to talk about Stoops. We talk about Stoops. Like, that's a great example. Kentucky's a basketball school, but Stoops started to succeed and they started to recruit a little bit better. Now, that's the SEC, so it's different. But I'm saying I think that Elko, had he continued to succeed, would have moved those recruiting classes up step by step by step in the right direction. But obviously, you don't have to worry about that because he's Texas A&M's head football coach now, and he is going to be recruiting for the Aggies, and I think he's going to be succeeding. So to sum this up before we move into segment 2 today, what I'm really getting at is simple as this. Yes, those recruiting classes weren't exciting at Duke, weren't the most, oh, wow, that's incredible. But that is not something I'm concerned about, because Texas A&M has the resources. Division sells itself. The SEC sells itself. Everything, his defense sells itself. Everything that Coach Elko brings to the table is going to sell itself, plus what Texas A&M has to offer on its own. And frankly, while I think he's a good recruiter and he'll be able to recruit well, it's not, I think he already has an elite recruiter in like Coach Robinson, and he's going to have people that are going to help with that and are really good at that. Once again, pull up 24/7 Sports, top recruits, see the school they're going to. Is it Georgia? Is their lead recruiter Kirby Smart? Probably not. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Obviously, the head coaches are talking to the players, are calling the players, but the everyday contact is usually the position coach, that kind of stuff. So I'm not worried one bit about Coach Elko being able to recruit at Texas A&M. I think he will absolutely thrive in College Station, and I'm sold. I'm bought in. I am excited to see what Coach Elko is going to do. And there's just a lot of fun stuff coming up with the portal open, and we'll talk about the portal in segment 3 and some needs and all that stuff. But there's just a lot of fun coming up when it comes to this football program, and I am really excited to go on this journey with y'all. Coach Craig and Coach Addazio are not going to be kept on Texas A&M's staff going forward. I think this has positive things for the future. This is a good thing for the future, and we will discuss why coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. First, I got to tell you about our wonderful friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So, Coach Craig and Coach Addazio are gone. The bad man is gone in reference to Coach Addazio. Now, when I say bad man, I'm talking, I don't think he did a great job as the offensive line coach at Texas A&M. So let's talk about what this means. I think you could argue that for both of these coaches, both of these guys, they had talent, and I don't think they did a good job developing it. I don't. I think that both of these coaches did a good job recruiting. I think they both did a good job of bringing in the guys. No question. No doubt in that statement. But they didn't really develop the guys. And that is what we've been, that is everything. That is everything. Who's going to be who's going to develop talent is who's going to succeed in college football. You have to develop these guys. It doesn't, I think what we've learned is everybody always, talks about Texas A&M where you can't buy players. You can buy players if you can develop players. But if you are just buying talent and not developing it, no, you're not going to succeed. And I think that is what we learned from the previous regime at Texas A&M was, yeah, they had the guys. They had the players that they needed to compete for SEC championships every single season, compete for national championships every single season. But somehow, except for really one season, they were never even in the conversation. And so you kind of sit back and you ask yourself, like, well, how is this possible? And it's simple. One simple word. It's development. Development is everything in college football. That's why I always respect coaches who kind of, make their way up in the coaching ranks from some smaller schools and find success at some smaller schools, developing with 2- and 3-star recruits and turning that into 9-win seasons. I respect that because it proves that you can develop talent. And so if you can develop 2 and 3 stars, you can definitely develop 4 and 5 stars. And I mean, looking at at Coach Elko's status, where he was a DC before he kind of moved up in the world, there's no doubt in my mind that he kind of did exactly that. He started developing no stars, then moved to 2 stars and 3 stars, and and developed talent and worked his way up to where now he's the head coach of Texas A&M. That is kind of what I'm getting at here. Is I think that the development factor is everything. And Coach Craig and Coach Addazio, while I like them, and they just didn't get the job done on the on the development trail. They did a good job recruiting. We have a ton of talented receivers, a ton of talented offensive linemen. But then you look and you go, why is Bryce Foster playing so bad? Layden Robinson playing so bad? Why are these offensive linemen that were so highly ranked or such good football players not turning into NFL talent at the next level, turning into incredible offensive linemen, incredible football players? And part of that has to do with the development of the coaching staff. I mean, like speaking to the offensive line, I think a lot of highly ranked, highly recruited offensive linemen sometimes tend to be, a bit, they're big guys and maybe they're not the most sound technique wise. Sometimes they are sound technique wise. They're not huge guys. You have to be able to develop around whatever you're given. If this guy's just bigger than everybody else and he can push people over, then, you got to develop his technique. If this guy's got really sound technique, but he's not a huge guy and he needs to get a little stronger, develop that. I think that's kind of what I am getting at when it comes to the recruiting side of things. I mean, the development side of things here is you have to be able to take the talent you have on roster and take the talent you have that you've recruited and turn it into improved every year football players. And I mean, speaking of the defensive line, right? We talked about Walter Nolan was good as freshman year. He was good, but there was definitely room to get better. For who he was, as one of the highest ranked recruits in football. And what did he do? He goes out and he's just better. Evan Stewart's a guy. Evan Stewart's an incredible football player. Incredible football player. But it's kind of like, I think that he still needs to develop more. I think that I definitely have questions in regards to his development and how much, he did or did not develop during his time, or during, he at Texas A&M. I mean, he's still there, obviously. And I've heard some rumors, and I'm recording this a little early. So if Evan Stewart were to enter the portal at some point, whenever that does happen, if that does happen, I'll record a little bonus episode. But I saw on Twitter that maybe Craig leaving could help Texas A&M's chances of keeping Stewart around. I don't know the truth to that. Like I said, if he leaves, I'm recording this episode on the 29th, kind of early. So if he leaves, I'll do a little bonus episode talking about it. So if that happens, I want to add that caveat. But I think that he deserves a little bit better when it comes to the development. We know how good Evan Stewart is. So I think, if you bring in the next coach that is more of a developer, watch out. Because I mean, look at these players. Look at these receivers you have on the roster now. It's like some of these guys, if they just had a little bit more help from the coaching staff, I mean, these guys would be more incredible than they already are. So I think, and the same with Addazio. I mean, the offensive line, we talked about it. To be a successful football team, you have to have a good offensive line. It is written in black and white, simple as that. If you want to succeed, if you want to be a good team, your offensive line has to be good. And I don't think Steve Addazio was doing a good job at Texas A&M when it comes to recruiting. I mean, when it comes to developing offensive linemen. The offensive line was awful. And it was leading to the offense not being able to move the football. I talk about how important the offensive line is. If your offensive line is bad, your offense is bad because your running backs don't have a way to get don't have holes to run through. Your quarterback doesn't have time to throw the ball. The receivers don't have time to let their routes develop and get open for the quarterback to get them the ball. That is what I'm saying. It's truly, I just think getting rid of Addazio, hopefully, is going to lead to much improved offensive line play at Texas A&M. I mean, it's got to be better. Your offensive line play has to be better because if you want to win football games, if you want to succeed, if you want to do what we talked about a couple days ago on the show, which is compete for an SEC championship in the near future, offensive line play is going to be step one to getting there. So this offensive line has to be better. So hopefully a new hire will lead to more success up front with the big uglies, mowing people down for the Aggies, giving time for the quarterbacks. That's all going to be great. So those two guys, Coach Craig, Coach Addazio, will not be on staff for Texas A&M. Best of luck to them wherever they go, their next home, but it's not going to be at Texas A&M. And I think that is a good thing for the future when it comes to player development, which is the name of the game for Texas A&M football moving forward. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer portal and what Texas A&M needs. We're going to do that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. First, I got to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. I love PrizePicks, and what I love so much about PrizePicks is how easy the app is to use, how fun it is. It just makes watching sports more fun. They're going to give you a number for an athlete. So let's say it's CJ Stroud, 268 passing yards, which the way he's played, it should be like 310. And you're going to go over, you're going to click a button, one or the other, over or under. He's going to have a good game, you click over. If you think he's going to have a bad game, you click under. Simple as that. You can do 2 picks. You can do up to 6. I sometimes like to do 2. On Sundays for football, I like to pick the 2 that I'm most confident in and put a little bit more money on it than if I did like a 5 or 6 leg. So I put a couple, 2 legs that I feel great about, put some money on, or go all the way up to 6 legs. That boosts the odds. It's just so much fun to use PrizePicks. The app's easy to use. The app's fun to use, and it just makes watching sports a lot more fun. You got to go check out PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and promo code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. So now kind of moving in to this transfer portal conversation. Obviously the portal is not open yet. I believe that happens the Monday after the conference championships are played. So, in what? Let's see. I'm recording this on Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 5 days, the portal will be open. And one thing I'll tell you, this to me is interesting. I find the portal to be a very fun. I know it's some of the people that don't really like it. I get the reasons why, but I think it's it's part of the world we live in. It's interesting and it's kind of fun to break down. But what I'll tell you is this. I think maybe this was like this last year, and if it was, tell me. But it really feels like last season people didn't enter the portal. So you can't officially enter your name into the transfer portal until that date, that Monday comes up. And like I said, I'm 99% sure it's Monday, but I know it's like after the conference tournament. It's either Sunday or Monday, but I'm pretty sure it's Monday. But you can't enter your name in the portal until then. But people are still people are still saying, I am going to enter my name in the portal when it opens, or I plan to enter the transfer portal. People are just doing it anyway. And they're not, obviously they're not in the portal because it's not open, but they're saying, hey, in 5 days, I'll be in the portal. And what's funny about it to me is I think Max Johnson leaves, Raymond Cottrell leaves. Raymond Cottrell leaves like the day after Coach Fisher gets let go. And obviously the portal's open for these guys because the coach was fired. So they have an open portal window. So for Texas A&M, the portal window is open. Now, Max Johnson leaves because I think he's going to be a little bit buried on the depth chart with how deep the quarterback room is going to be next season with some young guys, some older guys. It's going to be a deep room. And so Max Johnson, good for him. He's a veteran. I want him to go and find somewhere to play, find somewhere to succeed. I don't want him held down here as a backup. Go find somewhere to play. But I just think what's interesting is how many people have already said, yeah, I'm going to be in the portal. But talking about position groups, I think that the Aggies need to add a good amount of players in when it comes to the portal this season. I think the number one position you have got to hammer is the secondary, both corner and safety. Now, I know you've got you had some young corners and safeties on the roster this season. You have some talented corners and safeties committed in the 2024 class. Hopefully those guys stick around. But at the end of the day, that's a position I think you have got to go get more guys in. Linebacker as well. I wouldn't mind a couple more receivers. And a lot of this is going to depend on what happens with who leaves Texas A&M, who sticks around and who leaves. But, right now, the way the roster sits, I think corner, safety, wide receiver, and linebacker are the two positions you got to go get. Now, if you want to say, I'm completely cool saying we need offensive linemen because ours aren't very good, I'm fine with that. But there are going to be a bunch of offensive linemen. So I think that you could see, when that new coach comes in, could they immediately go and get some new offensive linemen? I wouldn't be upset about it, not one bit. And here's the deal. The offensive line we had last season didn't perform well. Now, we know how talented and big and strong they are. I'd like to see them get an opportunity to have a better coach develop them and see what happens with that. But, that's definitely a thought for me as a position. But I think those are the positions that you are going to have to hit hard. And, we're going to talk a lot about the portal when it opens, who leaves for Texas A&M, who are some targets the Aggies should go after. That is going to be a huge part of our daily conversation over the next few weeks right here at Locked On Aggies. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day. It was another fun episode. We got a fun week coming up. Obviously, we're going to have some coaching hires on the way. Every time we get a coaching hire, we'll do a little 10-minute bonus show. So a lot of fun coming up on the show, a lot of fun coming up for Texas A&M fans. Thanks for being here, tuning in every single day, all you everydayers. I really do appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day today, and we will see you tomorrow.